Hey everyone, I wanted to take a moment to review some of the commonly missed questions from Chapter 5 test. There were a few that could have given you issues, so I just want to go over them quickly to kind of point out where you're going to begin to get your correct code. Alright, our first question we're going to cover is question 4. Now, it might not have been question 4 on your test as they were randomized. But we have admission for chemotherapy for primary cancer of the body of the pancreas. So the first thing we're going to ask is, why are they here? They're here for the chemotherapy. So that's what's going to be our first code. So we'll go down to chemotherapy, and then under chemotherapy we find neoplasm, and we get Z51.11, which you can find on page 53 in your index, which is where you should always be starting when you're looking for your codes. Next, we got to code the neoplasm. Why are we having the chemotherapy? It was brought to my attention that some might not know where the neoplasm table is located, and that is right after your alphabetic index on page 331 in your coding manual. That might explain why some of you might have had a hard time trying to find your codes if you were not going there. So in this particular instance, we are going to go to neoplasm table, then we're going to look for pancreas, which we found here on page 342 in the right column, and then from there you got to go down to body, and then we go over to our primary, which is going to be that first column is our malignancy primary, and then this is for metastasis where it is spread, so this is malignant secondary. So we want to make sure that we're using this first column, and right here is our code, C25.1. And again, you're not going to code from your index, you're going to trust it, but you're going to actually code from your tabular, so you will go to it there. Because if we're going to see instances like this one up here, that's not a complete code. We're going to have to go to the tabular to finish it off. Alright, question 5. Adenocarcinoma of the parotid gland with metastasis to the spine. So as you can tell by the pictures here, the first thing we're going to code is our primary malignancy, which is our parotid gland. So on page 343 in the left column, you will find parotid duct, and then under it you find the gland. And then because it's primary, we're using that first column, so that gives us our C07. Doesn't have a check mark or anything, still check it in your tabular, just make sure that you have everything required to code it. And then we need to code the metastasis, the secondary location. So we know that it spread to the spine, so you're going to go to that body part, to the spine or spinal column, and then we're going to that second column because it's malignant secondary. So that's where we get the C79.51, and then again we confirm it in the tabular. Alright, question 6, metastatic liver cancer from the colon. Patient is being treated for the liver cancer. Let's talk about this a little bit first. What is this telling us? This is telling us that we have metastatic liver cancer, which means it is secondary. And where would the primary be? From the colon. So the colon is going to be our primary. But what are we going to list first? Why is the patient here? They're here for the liver cancer, so we got to make sure that we code that liver cancer first, since that's what brought them in. So we'll go to neoplasm, liver, as you can see here. In this particular instance, I do want to point out that primary here does not mean primary here. So this primary is not talking about the malignancy, it's talking about the organ itself. So the neoplasm is in the primary liver. Histology, this would be if we're just talking about our tissue, okay? So we're not talking about the tissue, we're talking about the liver in itself. So we're going to use this primary. Then we go over to the secondary, since this is secondary cancer. So you get your C78.7. Okay, and then we have to code where is it from, right? What's the primary location of this cancer? So in this case, we go to neoplasm, colon, and then we use that first column, which is our primary malignancy, and that gives us our C18.9. Again, you can find that on page 334 in the right column. And then this is kind of explanation about again, why we're putting the secondary first is because that's why they're being treated. That's why they're there. Otherwise, your primary cancer would be first. All right, question 7. Patient is being treated for metastatic cancer of the right lung. So in this particular instance, we need to go to our table of neoplasms because we do know it's cancer. It says metastatic cancer. So we'll go to our table of neoplasms, right? And then we'll look up lung, and then we have to look at that secondary code because this was metastatic. So that metastatic means it's secondary. If it was malignant, that would be your primary, but this is metastatic, so it's our secondary. So then you go to your secondary column. Notice we have C78.0, and then we have that dash, which means it's not finished, and the check mark is telling us that we need to check our tabular. So then once you go to your tabular, you'll see your C78.0. Notice the check 5th in front of it. That means you have to have a 5th character. You cannot leave it as is. It is not a complete code. It will be denied. So that 5th tells us where we need to go. So then we go ahead and we start reading. This is lung unspecified. This is right lung, which we know it's the right lung, right? It says up here, right lung. So then our code ends up being C78.01 because that's as far as we can go. All right, now we have to code the primary for the secondary. It doesn't state anywhere that it was the primary malignancy. So in this case, it's unknown site or unspecified. And this is going to be found on page 348. I do encourage you, once you find the unknown site or unspecified section on that page, go ahead and highlight this little area because you will use it a lot, and I promise you, you'll probably look on that page 4 or 5 times. Your eyes will probably have gone right over it and you'll never see it. I swear it hides. So go ahead and highlight it so you can go right to it every time. And since it's our primary unknown site, we're going to use that C80.1. And again, you're going to confirm in your tabular. All right, finally, I want to talk about question 10. Well, this was 10 for me. Patient is being treated for anemia due to renal carcinoma of the right kidney. Now, in the presentation that I did, we explained how anemia can actually be first listed or second listed. So you have to know your rules. And in this particular one, you can see at the bottom, the rule: when the patient is being treated for anemia due to cancer, you got to code the cancer first, then the anemia second. If this anemia was due to a treatment like chemotherapy, then our anemia code would come first, followed by the cause of the anemia, which would be our chemotherapy. So do pay attention to those rules. So in this particular one, we would go to, there we go, page 338, which shows kidney under the neoplasms. And then at first code, because it's our primary, that's going to be C64, and then notice we have our dash and check mark, so we've got to go find. I didn't include the little block right here, but it tells us that we need additional code. So we need 5 characters, and we do know that it's of the right kidney. So our code would be C64.1. Malignant neoplasm of the right kidney, except renal pelvis. It states nothing about renal pelvis, even though you have renal here and renal right below it. It is not. Trust your index. If your index has trusted or has given you directions to go to this specific code, try to refrain from looking around and seeing if something else matches your description. That's where you can get into some trouble. So make sure when you're going into your tabular that you're confident in what you found in the index before you go there. Alright, next we've got to code the anemia and the neoplastic disease. So we're going to go to anemia, and then we'll go to N, which you see right up here, and due to or with, and then we go down to neoplastic disease, or you can also see neoplasm, and that gives us our code D63.0, which again you will go into the tabular and just confirm it. I hope this has helped some of you. Let me know if you prefer this method versus the other video method where I'm kind of sending you guys on a vertigo trip. I wasn't trying to. I apologize for that. Also, if you are struggling at any point with any of this, please reach out to me. I'm going to put my email up